Welcome to the In Between podcast. Today I am chatting with Dr. Nona Djavid, who is an entrepreneur, author, podcaster, speaker, and chiropractor dedicated to helping individuals unlock their potential. She's the founder of the Elevate Club and has been featured in Forbes, NBC, and the Wall Street Journal, and so much more. Dr. Nona blends mindset, strategy, and transformative tools to help people turn their visions into reality and to learn to live an unreasonable life. And that's where I want to start. Welcome to the In Between podcast. I'm so excited to have you here, Dr. Nona. How are you?
Thank you.
I would love to just jump right in and talk about this concept that absolutely blew my mind when I was on a call with you. The difference between a reasonable and an unreasonable life. How did you unlock this, and why have you become so passionate about teaching it?
Okay, so let me take you back to when I built a really reasonable life, which I think many people can relate to. And that is really what unlocks, as you called it, a different way, like wanting a different way, desiring a different way. So I was one of those kids who was just, I'm going to do the things. I'm the A+. I do the work. I study. I do all of these things I'm supposed to be doing. So I was a pretty good student in school. I went to Berkeley. I studied neurology at Berkeley. And then I went on. I got my doctorate degree. I moved down into a new town. I opened up a business. I got married. I had kids. So I was really the good girl syndrome all the way through and through. And I checked off all the boxes that I was supposed to check off by my family, by culturally, society, and the entire consciousness of the world. I think no matter where you're from, you can relate to this. And as I was doing all of those things, I remember I had worked so hard to build this life that was so reasonable. And I checked off all the little boxes I had built in my early 20s. I'd built a 7-figure business. And I remember having a moment where I was like, I am completely unhappy. I was alone in my marriage. I was burnt out. I was working too many hours. I didn't have the presence of mind to even be able to hang out with my children without having to think about work or stresses of life. And so I had this moment where it was like, maybe it's not what it's all cracked up to be. And I had a thought where it was like, this is not going to be worth, living. This reasonable life is not really working out. I'm going to have to do something that's different. And I share this often. Anytime I get a chance to share the story, is I remember walking into a closet space. I shut down the lights. I shut down the door. I sat next against the wall and I held onto my knees and I just sobbing because the life that I had built, it was supposed to make me happy and make me feel successful and fulfilled and loved. And it wasn't doing any of those. And I remember having sort of a vision, or you could say a remembrance of something in my childhood, which was really this vision of growing up to live a happy life and being in love and traveling and having a little cute family and also having an impact in the world. I always wanted to sort of have an impact in the world. And I had that vision and I thought to myself, well, that's not reasonable and that's not possible. And fortunately for me, bottom of the rabbit hole, if you would, and I knew that if I didn't choose a different way, that the old way was not going to be worth living. And I walked out of that closet. I jotted down the things that I'd wished my life looked like, almost like a wish list of what my life looked like. And from where I was sitting, that wish list and that vision for life or for my business or for my relationship was completely unreasonable. Completely unreasonable. It was actually a little bit crazy. But the decision I made in that moment was to continue to say yes to that vision instead of doubting it and being like, how am I going to make that work? Are you worthy of this? I remember waking up many days since then and think to myself, you're not going to make this happen, or doubt myself, or be completely depressed, wake up and be like, this is a crappy day. I don't want to live this day. But my commitment was to the vision no matter how I woke up. And ultimately, I don't want to make it sound like this was an overnight success. This took years and years to accomplish, but I learned a lot, and I've created a bunch of frameworks around how do you do this? How do you move from reasonable to completely unreasonable? And here we are, about a decade, more than a decade. I am about to be married to the love of my life. I live between Southern California and Italy. I work school my kids. I have multiple seven-figure business. But these are the things I wrote down in that closet space where I was not worthy of. My identity back then in the closet space was not worthy of. And it just, if God himself, herself came down and was like, this is the life you're going to live, I'd be like, that's insane. That's not going to happen.
It's so inspiring. I have to ask, do you think ever the reasonable life was ever a dream at a point in your life? Or do you think it was just the matrix? Because it was just the rat race that you were sold and that you were told needed to be the dream.
I think I would say, so that's such a great question. It was a borrowed dream.
I love that.
It was
I love how you worded that.
In a way, you're right. It was what the Matrix had told me and what the consciousness of the world, had said. Like, if you do these things, you'll be successful. And I thought I wanted to be successful or I wanted to be happy. So I'm going to follow those things. So it was a borrowed dream. Did I ever have, and I think that's just the process of the journey of the human being. Did I ever sit down with myself and go, I'm going to build this life, and because these are my values, I'm going to be happy because it's going to give me this level of, it was not intentionally designed. It was borrowed.
And what do you think needs to shift in someone to realize that they want an unreasonable life?
Yeah. I do believe, and this might sound a little bit out there, I do believe that every single person, every single human wants something outside of what they currently are experiencing. Might be more love, it might be more tenderness, it might be more joy, it might be more money, it might be more of something. Now, whether we claim it or not is a different story. Now, I usually say there's three categories of people. The first category goes, I don't know what I want. Second category says, I have an idea, but maybe I don't want to claim it. And the third category goes, I know exactly what I want. I want this kind of house and this kind of car, And I'd like to talk to the first category where they say, I don't know what I want. I don't know if I want anything different, right? Then I say, okay, well, maybe, possibly, the fact that you say you don't know what you want, it might just be a way to keep you comfortable because you're too afraid to go outside. What if you did know? Oh, gosh, if you knew, then you'd have to take some steps. If you knew, you might have to let go of some people in your life. If you knew, you might have to step out. So consider that you might just, quote unquote, don't know because you're looking to stay comfortable. So the second group of people that go, I have an idea, but I don't know. I say, let's go ahead and expand on what you do know. So you say, I want this house or this relationship, or I want more love or more joy. Can you expand on it? Can you tell me what that feels like or what that looks like? Or, what's the wood floor? What color is the wood flooring? Or what model car? Or what kind of impact? And what would it feel like to have that kind of impact? So tell the second group to expand it. And then, of course, then the third group, which is like, exactly what you want. It's just a matter of becoming a version of yourself is worthy of that dream, that unreasonable dream.
Those are so powerful. And I think everyone listening to this probably, as you were speaking, were like, that's me, that's me. How do you help your clients? One, obviously you're helping them identify that dream if they're in that first category. How do you help them with that mindset? Because even you mentioned, right, like you sat in that closet and you felt you weren't worthy and all these different beliefs started coming up. Mm-hmm. What are the tools and the practices that you utilize to shift those mindsets for women? Well, and men.
Anybody, right?
Yeah.
I think the first thing to realize, to normalize the fear and the doubt that's going to come. Because, and I define this, right? I think there are 3 kinds of visions you could have for your life or for your business or for your relationship. The first kind of vision is going to be a smart vision. They are reasonable, measurable, and all of those things. They do not require you to step outside of your current reality. And by definition, a smart goal or a smart vision is something that you already know how to do. Okay. So it's not going to require Nona or Cassidy to really go outside of the comfort zone or outside the box. The second kind of goal or a vision is an inspired vision. So an inspired vision is okay, so maybe it's to the edge of comfort zone. And the criteria for an inspired vision is that you maybe don't know how to do it, but you can probably figure it out. You feel empowered sitting down and game planning here. Much better than SMART goals, but they still do not require you to depart your current identity. And then there's a third kind of goal or vision, which obviously is going to be the unreasonable goal. This particular way of jotting down how you want to experience the world has 2 criteria. So first criteria is that you have no idea how to get there. You don't know anyone that can help you get there. It's all outside the box that you're I don't even know where to begin. And then the second criteria, which is really important, is that it has to activate a part of your nervous system that says you are not worthy. That's not you. You can't do that. There's some kind of fear or doubt. And this is why I say we have to normalize the fact that there will be doubt around it. As a matter of fact, I tell my students, if there is no doubt or no fear, you're not in the right category for an unreasonable life. You're not going to change or quantum leap all that much, because remember, category 1 and 2, they do not require you to move outside of your current identity. Category 3, the unreasonable life, is asking you to become a whole different version of you, a different identity of yourself, right? And in that process, there has to be fear and doubt, because you're asking the ego to go oh, these are the parts you're gonna kill. So it's a death and a rebirth that happens in this process. And there it's normal if you don't have the fear and the doubt.
That is so good. And I love how you work that, because I think so many times with social media and other voices, we hear oh, well, if you're doubting it, don't do it. And it's well, what if you actually leaned into it?
You lean into it, because you're only doubting it because your ego is afraid of losing safety. Your nervous system feels unsafe because it's unknown territory. So there are ways that you can make that known to your nervous system, so that the fear ultimately and the doubt, you can dance with it, you can work with it instead of having it hold you back.
As we talk, I'm thinking about this movie that I saw. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, but I forget what it's called. It's Ryan Reynolds is stuck in a video game. Have you seen that movie?
Haven't.
He's stuck in a video game and he's basically reliving the same life over and over again. And he starts to basically become conscious, and he's wait, there's something more in this. So the whole game is him pulling himself out of what we call the Matrix, the rat race, right? And he's trying to tell the other characters in the game, there's something more here. And they're just stuck in it. They don't see what they don't see, right? And so as we're talking about this, I keep thinking about that movie, because I'm man, that really is what's happening in our world today, is people are waking up and they're seeing wait, maybe this reasonable life, maybe there's more.
Yeah, maybe there's more outside of the Matrix. Maybe my soul is here to experience something wildly different than what everyone else is.
That term. So one of the things I love that you discussed when I heard you speak was the difference between, the energetics of what we're discussing and the mechanics. And I really resonated with that, because I feel that sometimes when you're speaking with coaches or consuming content about this stuff, you have the people who are oh, you have to manifest it. And if you just sit there and you manifest it, it will come true. And then you have the other side that's oh, manifestation doesn't work. You just need to put the work in. You need to get a mentor to. And I loved when you were speaking, I took so many notes, because you perfectly mesh both. You're realistic. You're actually, you need both of these things. Yes, so can you talk a little bit about your belief system and how you coach people in this?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I built my first business, my very first business, I was all mechanics. Well, let me step back. Let's define what that is, right? Because you heard me talk and maybe unfamiliar with some of your audience. So one of the things I always teach is that anything you're looking to make successful in your business, in your life, in your relationship, whether you want to get your body healthier or you want to attract the right person or take your marriage to the next level, whatever it is that you want to do, there are always going to be two components. One component is going to be the mechanics of things. So mechanics is like, okay, what does it take for me to lose weight or be healthier or have a great relationship or make money? Okay. And the other aspect of it is the energetics portion of it. And energetics is like, what are my emotions about this particular concept? What are my neuro-tags, which we can get into, but basically, what are my thoughts? What are my emotions? What's inside of what I call energetic field? What's my go-to addiction to a particular emotion that I'm experiencing? So and the combination of these two things, the right combination, is what generates and creates a quantum leap. If you do mostly mechanics, which is what I did when I first built my first business. Like I said, I built a 7-figure business. I was in my early 20s, and I did it just by a lot of push, a lot of doing. I would say probably 90%, maybe more mechanics, and just not enough energetics. Like I wasn't focused on what I wanted to experience, what filled up my heart, and my entire energetic field was probably filled up with not worthy. And I was fueling the doing and the mechanics from a place of not worthy. I want to prove myself. I want to be successful. I want to be somebody. I want to make somebody. I want to fit in, whatever the idea was back then, right? So I end up burnt out and in an unsuccessful marriage, right? Fast forward as I live in the past decade, and I've developed a framework where I literally take my students through 4 specific steps. I teach them how to kind of get out of that. But once I made the decision I wasn't going to approach it that way, all mechanics, and I understood the importance of energetics because of all the things that I started to study, then it became about, wait a second, my energy and what I put in my energetic field matters just as much, if not more, than the mechanics portion of it. So I could have been doing this. If I did, this is the first time I'm actually going through this thought process with you together here. But if I look back to when I was building that business, and if I knew what I know now about energetics with the amount of mechanics and strategy I put in place, man, that I would have probably had $100 million exit, right? So it's capping us. It's keeping us limited if we are focused on the mechanics and we forget how we are showing up in our energetic field to those mechanics. So, fast forward, I have multiple 7-figure businesses and I travel the world and I have a lot of free time and I live a 1-week-a-month lifestyle. And I'm doing that not because of strategy. As a matter of fact, when I had the vision to work only 1 week a month and generate more profitability, the thing that was easy was to restructure my business and my strategy and scale the business. That part was easier than for me to sit in the discomfort of all this free time. Are you worthy of being on vacation for this? Are you worthy of just taking your kids out whenever you want to? Like, are you worthy of that? That was a big jump in my identity share. Way more challenging than it was to go, let's hire more people and let's scale this company. So mechanics versus energetics, what's holding us back?
And I want to talk about the 1 week a month lifestyle, of course. I also want to mention, and you kind of mentioned it within this topic, you mentioned the addiction to certain emotions, beliefs. One of the ones that stuck out for me specifically was the addiction to struggle that a lot of entrepreneurs have. And I would just love for you to go off on this, because when I heard you talk about this, I was like, guilty. Like, it's so true. And now that I think about it and I understand what you're talking about, I'm like, oh my gosh, every entrepreneur I meet is struggling to, and they're addicted to it.
They're addicted to it. So Example of this is members of my master. So I have a mastermind. It's called 1 week a month mastermind. So you can imagine a room, a Zoom room, and sometimes we meet in person, full of high achievers. Okay. They're already successful. They're all doing great in their business and in their life. And they're like looking for the next thing to obviously do more, experience more things. But it's also called 1 week a month mastermind because I teach them how to create more freedom. And it's funny because when I tell them, when they first start to join the mastermind, one of the non-negotiables we have inside of the group is that they have to eliminate things from their list of things that they do on a weekly basis. So part of our accountability is you have to remove something. It could be firing someone. It could be throw away a piece of clothing. It could be take something off of your tasks and give it to your assistant. Like you have to remove something. You have to create space. One of our other non-negotiables is that you have to have a 1 hour of where you do nothing. Like you teach your nervous system, right? Like immediately they have the same reaction you do. They go into complete panic attack. Like, I thought I was going to be doing more things. I was going to take my business and my life to the next level, and it's going to require me to like struggle more and hustle more, wake up. I think tell me to wake up at 4 o'clock and get in a cold plunge or something. That in itself is like how uncomfortable we are as society in general, but I think especially certain parts of the population in sitting in spaciousness, in sitting in a little bit of space. And all I'm asking is an hour a week. And these entrepreneurs and business owners are like, can I do it like 15 minutes every 2 days? They're trying to bargain with me on non-negotiable. What a great example of how committed we are to struggle. How committed we are to struggle. And I used to think, because this is definitely one of my patterns, I used to think that if I didn't do anything, that I was not productive, which 3 layers down was because I felt like I had to do things to be worthy, right? Because when you're younger, and I'm guilty of this even with my children, though we approach them with praise when they do things, when they get things done, right? I'm not typically praising son for sitting there and resting, right? Or not taking out the trash because he wants to lay down on the couch. Like we're not praising them for that. So it's just part of running a society or running a household. And especially for me personally, every time I would get an A or I would accomplish or I would do the things, I was only worthy then, right? Like kind of pat on the shoulder. So of course I have this pattern where it's like I have to struggle and I have to work hard. Yay, you worked hard. So now as an adult, I feel like if I sit down, worthy. And that would show up in the relationship too. I think a lot of women feel this way because we watch our spouses oftentimes, like they'll sit on the couch and they have a different brain chemistry. So they'll sit on the couch and they don't do anything. And then we feel resentful because we're like, how come you're resting? And I've been working all day. It's like, no, you need to actually learn how to sit in rest like your spouse is doing or like your kids are doing. So that's definitely a big shift in removing some of those patterns and getting your nervous system to feel comfortable in the safety of more ease and more freedom and more joy.
Yeah, that's definitely difficult as a older sister, type A person. I'm sitting here like, oh, I always feel that way. And it's so hard to sit there because then you end up forcing yourself and you're like, the first thing that pops in your head is, well, what can I do now? And it's like, no, that's not the point. And it's interesting because I definitely think in 2026, like nervous system is going to be so huge because we're finally far enough out of the pandemic that people are realizing that we went from full stop to doing everything. And now we need to reverse. And I think it's interesting because you talk a lot about how the nervous system influences your subconscious beliefs, how those two are intertwined. So how can you, you obviously just mentioned resting, but besides that or within that, how do we work on those reprograms and begin to approach success differently? I think especially like you mentioned, as women who are programmed, okay, you need to be doing to feel successful, to achieve.
Yeah, even in a family dynamic, to overgive and to provide and to nurture and all of those things, which ultimately burns us out. Okay, great question. So from my understanding of the nervous system, like I said, I studied neurology so I have somewhat of a background on how all of this works, which I've put together to understand, okay, how do we reverse engineer? Like, if this is my pattern, then how do I get to the big picture? There are two ways to get rid of a pattern, right? Either traditionally, what we do is we dig in, say, traditional therapy, right? Which I'm a fan of. This is something that's working for you or absolutely need, then you do that. I've used therapy as well. But what it does is really digs into the root of why we started to have this belief system or this emotion or this pattern or this addiction. So there's a lot of energy given to why I am the way that I am, which kind of hooks you into the part of the identity. Like, it makes that part of you, part of your identity even more, because you talk about it on a weekly basis and figure it out and you go 3 layers deeper and whatever. There's another approach, which is, at first when I explain it, to some people it might feel like, well, that sounds like bypassing, but it's really not. It's rewiring. So all that is. The other approach is to go, wait a second, what do I want to experience? So I get it. I have this pattern for struggle, for scarcity, for not enoughness, for stressed out, for anxiety. What is it that I want to experience? And so if my answer to that question is freedom or joy or money or whatever the case is, then what if I end up, instead of tying up all my energy into why it has happened and when I was 3 years old and all of those things, what if I put the energy towards what I want to experience? Maybe I can create a little mind movie around it. Maybe I can dive into my unreasonable vision for my life and has all of those components. And if I end up spending more time and energy and intention and all of that into this way of where I'm headed, well, surely all those other neurons are going to eventually prune and prime. And, there's this concept in neurology and in psychology, which is what you have experienced, you're going to experience in the future. So you were in a toxic relationship, your parents were in a toxic relationship, you're more likely to pick up a partner that is toxic in the same patterns. If you have experienced certain patterns around money when you were younger, either directly or indirectly from your caregivers, you're going to repeat those patterns. They might look different, but that is the imprinting that we have from our childhood. So fast forward, how do I unhook those imprintings? Well, you could imagine if you went back to those imprinting and talk about it, and you, again, from a neurological perspective, we say the neurons that fire together, they wire together, which means I'm making those neurons like hook to each other even more by doing that. Or I could give my nervous system a whole new pattern. So the new pattern, even though I'm not experiencing it physically in my body, what I can experience it in my mind's eye, right? So the old pattern of struggle, maybe I experienced in my childhood, and it's a very real thing because it happened in the 3D, and my body and my mind and every cell in my body experienced it. So that's obviously very strong. But what if I created a new pattern in my mind's eye, which would take a lot of repetition, but ultimately my mind would go, and we know this again to be true too, based on research, when you think about something, the same areas of your brain will light up as if you were doing that thing. So it's as if your body is already doing it. It just might take more repetition. So again, when you do that and you hook onto this unreasonable for your life over and over again through various tools that nowadays are so much available to us, visualizations, breath work, meditation, mind movies, this and that and the other, you keep going there. Now your body thinks, I've already experienced this. So whether it's a new part, a new house, a new relationship, or peace, ease, love, money, your body has already experienced it. And if it's already experienced it, you are more likely to experience it in real life, both from a scientific perspective as well as energetically.
Wow, that's incredible. I assume it can be very difficult, and having things like, when you were speaking, I was thinking of a vision board, right? Like people put the vision board up and then every day they're looking at it. So do you find that people who are actively trying to kind of rewrite these stories, how is it best that they remind themselves? Because I know obviously you can get stuck in a moment where you're still so focused on that past and you're having to convince yourself and be like, no, we're focusing here now.
Yeah. Okay, I want to answer it, and then I want to come back to remind me if I forget, neuro-tag.
Okay.
Because what you
Neuro-tag.
just,
Okay.
yes, remind me of that, because there's a little nuance to all of this that I feel like
Okay.
the social media world misses. And so going back to the earlier conversation, people are like, just put your feet up on the couch and manifest. Like, it just doesn't work that way. There's a lot of nuances, but we'll come back to that. To answer your question, I tell my students it's not important how many times in a day, in an hour, in a minute you go off track and you go back to the old patterns. Not important. I would rather have a student within an hour 1,000 times gets off track in terms of her energy or energetic field and goes back to the old patterns of the struggle. What's most important is how long you'll stay in that pattern. How long you'll stay in that pattern. So an NFL coach actually, and he used to coach NFL, maybe it was like an assistant coach. I'm not into sports, so I don't know what his role was, but one of the things I learned from him, he was a very important person in the NFL. And not NFL. See, I'm messing this up already. NBA, basketball, right?
Oh, it's all the same over here, so don't even worry.
Oh, okay, perfect. For language, okay. So basketball. And he told me that there was, I'm going to totally butcher this idea, but what he said to me was one of the key factors in whether a player will be successful or not, whether a player is going to be a key player in that team or not, whether a team is going to win or not, has to do with one key factor, which is how quickly will you rebound from a failure, quote unquote. So if you lost the ball to the other team, how quickly are you able to just go quick into the mindset of, we're going to win this thing? The amount of time that it takes for you to go back to the center or back to, in a conversation we're having, the unreasonable vision that you might have, how quickly you go there is the key factor in actually being able to bring that life into reality. Unfortunately, most of us will get into a pattern and then 3 days will go by or a week will go by and then we've never gone back to it. So I tell my students the number of times you go back to the old patterns doesn't matter. You cannot get down on that. What you can do is you can focus on awareness of how quickly you're able to bring yourself back to the center. This is why I make it a mention, like the vision that I had, or even today, I have a big vision for the impact I want to create in the world. I wake up and I have days where it's like, I have moments, hours where I'm like, that's too big. Like, what are you doing? That's silly. And then I just go, no, Mike's to the vision. I have more certainty in the vision than I do in the fear and doubt. And if I don't have it, I just go back to the vision. So in a typical day for myself, from a practical perspective, I'm going through that vision multiple times. Sometimes, 20, 30, 50 times in a day, I'll open it up on my phone and I take a look at it and I read through it and I take myself back to a different frequency to be able to get there.
That's so helpful. Thank you for sharing your personal battle with it every day, because I think that is something on social media that we see, right? We see the masters. We see the people who, I manifested it and now I have it. And it's like, well, what does that really look like when you're doing it every single day? And for someone who's not only achieved one unreasonable vision, but now has something else that she's looking to do, it's like the work still is being done, even though you accomplished one of those visions.
Absolutely. It's a lifetime of work, really.
Yeah. You have to tell us about neuro-tags now.
Thanks for reminding me.
You're welcome.
I tend to get into the conversation and then I totally forget. Okay, neuro-tags. So here's the thing. When I'm looking this way, because I have my vision board up. So when people will go, I'm going to take a look at my vision board, or I'm going to read an affirmation. Okay. There's this that are nervous system correlated, and I'll share one of them in here for you. So if you grew up and money was a source of stress in your family, like there was some kind of anxiety, we don't have enough, some pattern that was attached to money when you were growing up, your nervous system creates a neuro-tag. It's like what we talked about earlier, the nerves that fire together, they are going to wire together, right? So your nervous system goes money, anxiety. It tags them together, kind of like a hashtag. If you go on Instagram and you put in hashtag mom, everything mom related will pop up the same kind of way. So it creates a neuro-tag. So now money is associated with anxiety and stress in my nervous system, right? Fast forward, I'm in my 20s, I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, and I'm building a business. and somebody says you need to work on your money mindset and you need to say affirmation that money flows to me all the time. Okay. And so let's say that I say that affirmation. When I say that affirmation, what most people don't realize is that you're actually not only not bringing any money in by that affirmation, but if anything, you are stimulating that neuro-tag that says money anxiety, money stress, okay? Because that's how your body and your nervous system associates money. So fast forward, I'm saying money comes to me easily, and your brain goes, not only does it not come to you easily, but also it's associated with stress and trauma. So every time I do those affirmations, or maybe I look at my board and there's a picture of money or luxury or something, my brain goes the same exact way. So the nuance of what's out there versus what is really happening in the nervous system is really the sort of make it or break it factor here. How do you get around that? Well, one of the ways that you get around that is when you look at your vision board, or when you say an affirmation, or when you do a mindset work or vision work or anything like that, is you have to go through the limbic system. You have to go through the limbic system, because the experience you had around money when you were a child was a lot of emotions hooked in with that experience of stress goes together with money. Now, in order to unhook that triad as an adult, I have to go money and then neuro-tag that intentionally with an emotion that's positive. So if I keep saying the things about my affirmations and I don't actually feel peace or feel gratitude or feel love or freedom or any of those things as I say that affirmation, not only did that affirmation not work, but it actually did more harm than we realize. Wow. So getting into the limbic system, creating a scene, we do a lot of mind movie work within my coaching container, and I teach them how to create a scene. So your nervous system goes, oh, wait a second. I've experienced this. This is safe. I also can bring in gratitude every time I look at my vision board or my, read my unreasonable vision. Going through the emotion and tagging it with the emotion is the key.
Okay, so you're using that unreasonable vision to create the emotion, the feeling,
yes,
as you're saying that after affirmation, so it's not tagged.
Exactly. It's tagged differently. Now it's tagged with gratitude, and then obviously repetition.
I mean, is there any science backing up that you could completely remove that childhood tags, or is it always going to be there? We're just making the other tags stronger.
I think it's always going to be there, but it's going to be much weaker. Is there scientific evidence? With regards to this, I can't say. Either I don't know, or I would say no, not yes. But with regards, there is scientific evidence that says you can unhook patterns in the nervous system by multiple repetition of a new one. This is how you create habits. Anyone who has a new habit, anyone who breaks through an addiction, they are rewiring their nervous system. So the rewiring of the nervous system, absolutely scientifically backed. I just don't know that there is any research with regards to like mapping something that relates to rewiring of the nervous system.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I last year had worked with Lisa, who's a mutual friend of ours. I swear, every single podcast I do, I reference Lisa. She's my mentor and my coach, but I had suddenly needed a new car, and I had that financial belief that you were basically just talking about. It's so funny that you chose that example. And one of the things that I immediately did based off of the world we live in today was like, okay, let me consume positive financial affirmations, podcasts, like whatever I could consume that was positive. And going into buying the car, I'm like, okay, this is going to be fine. Kid you not, I had the worst breakdown. They had to bring me a cake when I bought the car because I was crying hysterically. And it's supposed to be this happy thing. And I landed in Lisa's desk and I said, I don't know what just happened, but none of that stuff works. And then months later, I'm in her office for NLP, right? And because of this exact conversation is I was basically lighting all of that on fire as I was heading into the triggering event. And now I look back on it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was heavy. And it's been so fun to just nitpick it apart and be like, okay, what happened? And as you were speaking, I was just thinking of that example because it was like, in my head, I was doing the right thing. I was so prepared. I was getting myself in this positive state of mind. And it just 180 did not go that way.
Yes. I mean, yes. And we don't realize for most, I mean, this is pretty traumatic, what you're describing even, but like on day-to-day basis, we exchange, like you go to Starbucks or you go to lunch, and like imagine every time you deal with money, there's the neuro-tag of stress and anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Or every time you deal with a relationship or a relationship pops up, like all you're dealing with is a toxic dynamic there. And it's coming up and you don't necessarily realize, the conscious mind doesn't necessarily realize it. A really funny example of this is my son. I took my kids to like a little resort around here in California. We went to this really nice resort. We go there like at least a couple times a year. We always have a good time. We're so excited. We had dinner within less than 24 hours, maybe like 12 hours later, he got sick. He got like some food poisoning situation. And some of the food he was eating, without getting super graphic, was like, he had corn for dinner. Some corn was in there. So he saw and tasted a version of corn that he wasn't expecting. So he got really sick. Now, and this is ago, now when I say the word corn, he feels nauseous, right? He definitely won't eat any corn. And so that's simple of a neuro-tag. If you listen to a song that you listened to in your, when you were younger, and all of a sudden it brings up the memories, neuro-tag. If you smell some food that your grandma used to make and now you're smell, neuro-tag. It's all the same thing. It's just that some of them are so deep and social in the direction of life that we want to take that we need to we need to rewire them.
I think that's so powerful and useful, especially in the context of this podcast, being the in-between podcast, and, focusing on these in-between moments where you're exactly right. Like we can almost ruminate on these tags and ruminate on these things that happened or what we currently believe about them. And there's just such great opportunity to think differently, to create a different story and focus on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Well, I want to finish out discussing 1 week a month lifestyle because you've worked so hard to not only just have this lifestyle for yourself, but share it with other people. And obviously as a high achiever, what immediately comes up is like, how the heck am I supposed to achieve more by doing less? And you have the secret sauce for us. So I would love for you to share it.
In 5 minutes, I'm going to teach you how to work and work. All right. I think it's no different than anything else. It just happens to be my jam, right? I have always, even when one of the details I didn't share is when I was in that closet space, one of the decisions I made was to move my business in a way. It was a part-time 7-figure business. So I was able to do that in a year. I moved my things into a part-time scenario model. After that, I opened up 3 other locations, or 3 other businesses, I should say. And I was in the multiple 7 figures, pretty much semi-passive with those other businesses. And then fast forward more recently, in the past few years, I should say, I had the vision for 1 week a month lifestyle. And so my mission has always been about how can I, do more and have a bigger impact in less amount of time, which is very interesting because my pattern is also I should be doing things all the time. So these two things have been, what's it called, like in fighting with each other or like a conflict, right? Which this is my human journey, though. This is what I'm here for. Living a 1 week a month lifestyle, or a part-time 7-figure business, or finding love, or taking your marriage to the next level, or anything that you want, the next car, the next house. All of these things, the pathway is exactly the same. You've got to have an unreasonable vision. You've got to become the version of you that is worthy of that vision. You've got to embody that version of you. So these are the 4 steps, by the way, of the quantum leap: unreasonable vision, expanding your identity, embodying the new identity, the version of you that can sit down for an hour and do nothing. That version of you, right? That's the embodiment. And then, of course, the last step in the process, which is a lot of mechanics, which is taking unreasonable action. Those unreasonable actions are only going to work because now you have stepped outside of your current reality and you've moved into the identity of the next version of you. So with regards to 1 week a month lifestyle, I had to first have a vision. Then I go, who is the version of me that's living this life? I kind of envied her, right? First, it was like envied her, resented her. Like, how could she not be doing any work, or whatever? So I had to heal that relationship with the future version of myself. Then I had to embody her. And then, of course, taking unreasonable actions so that we can get to the place that we've gone into. And so that's the process I take. Mainly, that mastermind is typically for my entrepreneurs and business owners. But you'd be surprised. People in that group are, hey, not everybody wants to do 1 week a month. It's kind of an extreme version of it for most people. But taking off a Friday, going home early, not working as much, cutting out a day, taking a week off every month, or taking a, vacation every quarter. Different people have different versions of it. So, but 1 week a month, it just kind of describes this idea or a version of you that is more comfortable with freedom.
Yeah. And that's exactly how I interpret it. Is it's not about the fact that, okay, you're only working 1 week a month. It's the fact that you have the other 3 weeks, and that asks the question, well, what are you doing? If you're not doing these things, what are you doing? And I think exactly as you're saying, like, you have to believe that, and there's so many more steps in between that, between the nervous system, the mindset, all the things we've discussed. And yeah, it's just inspiring that you're holding these containers that are allowing other people to, one, admit that for themselves, and then two, have someone holding them accountable to take those action steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely love it. It's my favorite thing to do.
I love it. Well, I always end the podcast with asking, what advice would you give to someone who is in an in-between moment in their life right now?
I've been in many in-between moments. The advice I would give to myself in my own in-between moments would be to trust yourself. Just trust yourself.
And if you're struggling with that, go talk to Dr. Nona and see if there's a container for you, because I think that one is big. I think some people truly never learn that in their whole life, and it's sad.
Yeah, I agree. I've had to learn that over time too.
Me too. I'm still learning it, and it's a great opportunity to be in. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Nona. This was such an incredible conversation, and selfishly, I was just looking forward to it the past month because I knew I was going to be able to get so many goodies from you. Where can everyone connect with you, learn more? You have so many different offers, from books and podcasts and all the different things. Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, I would love a personal connect. Like, send me a message on Instagram. Find me on there. My first name, my last name, I should pop up. Find me on Instagram. Send me a message. Tell me that you heard me on this podcast and that it resonated with you. And for that, I will give you my entire training for where I go through the 4 steps of a quantum leap. And I teach you how to set an unreasonable vision, how to go through the thing, and it will change your life.
Well, thank you so much. That is so, so generous. Thank you so much for clocking in, listening to the In Between podcast with Dr. Nona today, and we hope you have a wonderful day. We'll catch you next time.